From the time I was a teenager, my parents started to condition me that I was going to have an arranged marriage. But it was something that I really didn't want to do. I went to a Western school. I was brought up abroad, not in India. And so I was learning different cultures. I was going to a British school. I lived in Hong Kong, which is also predominantly a Chinese culture. And so I had friends of all different cultures. And my friends would talk about going to college and going on to university and getting a career. But my parents said that higher education would actually reduce my chances of a good arranged marriage. So for me, that was very distressing. Now, as a teenager and in my late teens, I was a big fan of Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper was my hero. She was my role model. Do you remember who Cyndi Lauper is? She's the one that sang "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." Do you remember that song? So I grew up with Cyndi Lauper's music, and I used to dress like her as well. I used to spray my hair with the shocking pink and green and yellow spray paint, and I was like a huge fan of hers. And that would, of course, freak my parents out because they were trying to gear me up for an arranged marriage. So can you imagine my poor parents, how difficult it was for them? I mean, imagine trying to arrange a marriage for Cyndi Lauper and trying to make Cyndi Lauper into a housewife. So that was the challenge that my parents had. Anyway, I watched my friends, my Indian friends, one by one get into an arranged marriage. So finally, I started to get lonely and I started to feel scared because it felt like I was the only one left. So finally, I relented and I agreed to let my parents arrange a marriage for me. And so they did. They arranged a marriage for me with an Indian guy. And I was engaged to him. And as we were engaged, I started to realize that I was never going to be the wife he wanted me to be, because I started to realize that I was not going to be allowed to go to work. I was not going to be allowed to have a career. I was not going to be allowed to study. I had to live at home with him and his parents, and I had to take care of the house. I had to learn to cook, and I had to learn to clean the house. And basically that was going to be my life. And I was so scared about going through with it that 3 days before the wedding, I ran away. Now, I want you to bear in mind what an Indian wedding is like. So my friends and relatives had already flown in from all over the world for this wedding. We flew to India. My fiance and I had flown to India, and all our families and all our friends and relatives, and they had booked out the hotel. An Indian wedding is usually a 7-day affair, which is organized like 6 months, 8 months, even a year or two in advance. And horses were booked, elephants were booked, the grounds were booked, the musicians were booked, video people were booked. And 3 days before the wedding, I ran away. And when I look back today, it's the best thing I ever did. But at that time, I brought so much shame to my family, and I brought so much shame to his family, because for them it was a complete loss of face that I had run away. And I went and hid in a friend's house. I just felt I could not go through with it. Anyway, after that, I was completely ostracized from my community, from my relatives. My relatives all told my parents that they have a very spoilt daughter. Of course, my fiance's family were really upset. They were very, very angry. They were angry at my family. They were angry at me. My entire community ostracized me and told my parents that no boy, no Indian boy would ever marry me. Everybody told my parents that they would never let their son marry my parents' daughter, me, after what I had done. So I brought a lot of shame to my parents. You know, if you know anything about Indian families, Indian parents, when their daughter is born, they look forward to the day they get their daughter married. And my dad died before I actually married my husband, my husband Danny, who I've been married to for over 20 years now. My dad died before my wedding. And so I had always felt that I had let my dad down because I had brought him so much shame by running away from the arranged marriage. And one day when I finally did get married, he wasn't even alive. He wasn't even there to see it. And here I was now in the other realm, face to face with the essence or the spirit of my dad. And I was surprised that I got no judgment from him at all. There was only unconditional love.
Hat dir dieses Video gefallen? Gib uns ein Zeichen und lasse einen Daumen nach oben da. Bist du interessiert an weiteren solchen kostenlosen Videos? Dann abonniere unbedingt unseren Kanal und drücke die Benachrichtigungsglocke, denn nur so stellst du sicher, dass du kein weiteres Video verpasst. Danke dir und bis zum nächsten Video.